Paltrocast now with Darren Paltrowitz. Get ready to listen to your favorite artists.
Paltrocast. The first question I have for you, do I call you Andrew, King, Tito Flavors? What do you like to be called?
Tito Flavors. Is that from the NFL thing?
Yeah. I mean, you have a lot of names. What can I say?
Yeah.
See, also this film.
Yeah, I just go by Batch, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
Batch, thank you for taking the time. Aside from answering the same questions over and over and over again, good day for you so far?
Oh, yeah, great day. Is that an avocado in the back?
You are correct. That is an avocado-shaped balloon I stole from a press event last week.
Nice.
Have you ever seen before this an avocado-shaped balloon? Because I hadn't.
Never.
Well, courtesy of avocados from Mexico. But anyway, let's talk about Float. When did you actually film it?
I think we filmed it like two years ago. Yeah, 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah. Yeah, it was like during the pandemic, actually. So it was definitely a time when we didn't know what the rules were when we were filming. Yeah, but it was great. It was fun.
And how much is there of Jesse in you, the human being?
I would say a lot because, Jesse's really close with his sister. I'm very close with my sister. They work together. I work with my sister. And as far as I think that Jesse's character is like a voice of reason, when Blake, Robbie's character kind of gets out of line, Jesse's there to put him in check and let him realize hey, don't let this negative stuff overpower and overshadow the positive things that are happening in your life.
What was your gateway into this film? Was it a traditional audition or you knew one of the producers?
Yeah, I knew one of the producers. Robbie and Mel, this is actually my 4th film with him. So, we did The Babysitters together, those 2 on Netflix. Then we did When We First Met on Netflix. And then now this is our 4th one. So when he hit me up and he's like, yo, we have this role for you to play the best friend. I was like, yeah, man, count me in.
I'm a big fan of his work on Upload. How did you first connect with Robbie? Was it on set for that first production?
Yeah, it was on set for The Babysitter. Yeah. And yeah, he's been killing it. Upload is great. Did you watch the final season, this newer one with that cliffhanger?
Yeah, I thought that was going to be the final. As a press person who does all the junkets, I thought that was the end, and I didn't realize that there was going to be another season after that because that was a pretty tough ending. Yeah,
it was a pretty wild ending. But yeah, he's killing it, man.
My biggest takeaway from Upload isn't about Robbie; it's about how Andy is such an amazing guitarist and singer. Are you up on Andy's musical journey?
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, you'd never watch her and go, that's a person that Prince thought was on his level.
Yeah.
Now, for you, you are a person of many talents because I think a lot of people discovered you first because of Vine, but now you have probably over 100 TV and film credits at this point in time. Also a comic, also producing stuff, etc. Was the overall goal to be where you are now, or were you not thinking about it in the Vine era?
Yeah, I wasn't really thinking about it. I'm more of a guy that, takes this journey step by step, moment by moment. And I'm thankful to where I'm at right now. And I feel super blessed and honored and humbled to be where I'm at. But, we always have our goals that we set, and it's like we're trying to reach our goals step by step. So I'm still kicking it.
Yeah. When you found out that Vine was originally going away, were you panicked or did you feel that you'd already peaked on there?
Yeah, I felt like, I did what I had to do on there, create those 6-second videos. Looking back at it now, I don't think the place I'm at now, I don't think I could hustle like that again. It was a lot of energy, a lot of time that was, spent doing those videos. A lot of focus. Things were sacrificed. I didn't go to the gym. I didn't, go out to clubs. I was just really just focused on that. And it takes a toll on you for sure.
The top guys on that to me were you and Will Sasso. Why did Canadians dominate Vine?
why do Canadians dominate everything?
I mean, Robbie and Mel we're talking about.
Yeah.
So did your bond with Robbie have anything to do with I'm Canadian, you're Canadian, and we're
Oh yeah,
yeah.
yeah. We definitely, found that similarity in that. And being Canadian, we get a lot of benefits, like shooting movies in Canada. If you have a total Canadian cast, you get these tax benefits, which is great.
Now, I have a random question. Feel free to tell me it's a stupid question and I won't answer that. But I know from working in the music industry that a certain percentage of songs played on the radio had to have been made in Canada or made by Canadian artists. Does it work that way in casting as well, where they go, if you're going to make it here, X percent of the cast has to be Canadian?
Yeah. There's definitely things like that. So like I don't know the specific rules of it, but there are some films where you have to have a Canadian director, you have to have a Canadian writer, Canadian actor, a certain percentage of the actors have to be Canadian. And then I think you get like the Canadian government will fund a certain percentage of the movie for you. I don't know specific numbers, but I know there is something like that.
But to keep the compliments coming, you've outsmarted everyone by being a Canadian Florida person. Because you get the tax breaks from both ends.
Yeah. I got that Florida lifestyle in me too. The crazy.
Absolutely. So, Float Again is the new movie to us. To you, it's an old movie. Are we allowed to know what's coming next from you?
Yeah. So February 25th, I have the show The Walking Dead. The ones who
I've heard of it.
Yeah, so they're doing another spinoff called The Ones Who Live, and it kind of ties up all the OG characters, the Rick character, the Michonne character. That's what this limited series is about. And it's about, I was in the OG show, The Walking Dead, season 10, episode 13. And in that episode, it was Michonne's last episode where she kind of walks off into the distance. And before she walks off, there's my character and another character. And, I'm injured. And Michonne has the choice to either leave me there to die or help me bring me back to my community. And she helps me bring me back to my community. Now, does that work in her favor or against her? We're just going to have to tune in to find out.
Now, that cast has so many comedians buried in it that you don't realize are comedians. Is that a coincidence?
Yeah, I mean, Scott Gimble, he's a creator, showrunner behind the whole thing. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I said because comedians generally are the best actors that nobody realizes can act, because being a comedian itself is a character, yourself included.
Yeah.
Would you act at the beginning of your comedy career?
So I started off doing stand-up because that was what they said. They said you have to do stand-up. You do stand-up, you get discovered on a sitcom, then, you get movies and stuff like that. So I started doing that. But by the time I started doing stand-up, social media was starting to come on the rise. So I started doing like the YouTube videos, and then that brought me on a whole different path.
I asked that because I know that Groundlings is in your past, and Groundlings is generally the Groundlings can't improvise because it's more sketch, but you can improvise. So it seems like you have a little bit of each part of the training from comedy.
Oh, yeah. I love it all. I just look at it as a form of entertainment, and I'm just happy to be a part of it.
And is there any stand-up on the horizon for you in the near future?
Yeah, I got shows all the time. You could catch me, see if I'm in your city, kingbatch.com. And if not, you just message me on Instagram and say, yo, make sure you come to, I don't know, Wichita, Kansas.
There you go. Well, 2 quick questions and then I let you go. First one, what's the last concert that you went to for fun?
The last one was the Weeknd concert, and he canceled it. So
that's not the Canadian way.
Yeah. But he, I guess he lost his voice or something. It was huge on social media when it happened. We all thought it was a joke because right when he came out, he was just like, I got to go. And we're like, no, you don't.
Last question. What we know about you is the entertainment and that you're always working, because when you're not working, you're working. What do you do for fun?
For fun, I love learning. I taught myself how to play the piano a little bit. Learning new sports, pickleball. I started learning that. Yeah, I just love like doing new random stuff.
Well, Tito Flavors, an honor and a pleasure, and looking forward to the future gigs you got going on. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Paltrocast.
Good afternoon or good morning to you. You're West Coast, right?
Yeah. It's morning.
So you still have the coffee and all that.
Still got coffee. Yeah, first cup.
Got it. Good day for you so far, aside from having to do press.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind doing press. I like talking about it. It's
Well,
fun.
talking about
Yeah.
it, meaning
Yeah.
first there's the sometimes I think about dying, getting the vinyl and the digital release. When did you
Yeah.
find out that it was getting the vinyl release? Because that's kind of a landmark special thing.
I found out when I decided that I was going to pay to do it myself, which may have been an ill-conceived thing. But I was talking to Rachel, the director, about it, and we both agreed it's just cool to hold something in your hands. We work in such an art form where aside from like if you have like an esoteric Blu-ray collection or a vinyl collection or something. It's very like, it's not super tangible. And so having this sort of like, totem to hold as like a marker of like, we did this thing, we made it. So, it was an investment I make the joke that it's the most expensive piece of vinyl I own.
Well, it's a thing that you can always give out to people as holiday gifts if they don't fly off the shelves. So either way, you prepaid a holiday gift. How's that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All of my relatives and friends, regardless of if they have a record player, are getting one this coming Christmas.
Yeah. Well, that is not your only notable credit. I mean, recent work of yours that I loved is Kevin Can F Himself, rather. And you have the additional music title, but we're on 8 episodes or so. Are you allowed to say what you worked on specifically to that show?
I mean, yeah, yes and no. I mean, that score is Keegan DeWitt. And Keegan often brings me on for, I specialize in orchestral arranging, working in sort of like out of the box, like arrangement of, organic instruments is sort of like my forte. So Keegan and I are longtime collaborators. We're in a band called Wild Cub together. I produced the first Wild Cub record and played drums in the band for a long time. And we've been friends for the better part of, I want to say 15 years. And so, he'll bring me on when he needs like some extra hands on a project. And TV is always that way because the turnaround time on TV episodes, especially for something that's like, I guess you could consider an AMC like network TV, like the turnaround times on that are like, you sit down at a spot for a spotting session on like a Tuesday, and then you got to deliver an entire episode's worth of music on like a Thursday. So it's, it can be a lot. So, but yeah, I mean, a lot of that, I did a lot of the drum cues. I mean, we collaborated, it's not like, hey man, you write this, I write that. It's all Keegan's score. But, with, a lot of what I worked on was a lot of that, sort of drum percussion-y, kind of frenetic, sort of world, because I'm a drummer. That's my background. So, yeah.
The reason I asked about that credit in specifically is because it was without giving too much away to somebody who hasn't seen it, it's a dual sitcom trope show and a drama. So you have the things that you would expect coming in and out of a sitcom commercial break, and then dramatic stuff. So meaning one person shouldn't be able to write all of that music.
Right. Well, it was funny. So Keegan had this idea where he was like, that was his idea of like going in and out of the thing, being like, I wanted to, I can't remember. I think that the show was maybe called Newsroom or something. The news is like an old, but he was like, what if we had these sort of like stingers that went in and out? So he came over one day and I just, for probably about an hour and a half, we just, I sat at the drum kit and came up with these sort of kitschy, like drum fills and this other stuff. And then, he went in and put like guitar and bass and all this other stuff on it. And it worked really, really well. I mean, that was great because they just had a library of those sitcom stingers that they could go in and out of the episodes with. It was fun to make. Yeah.
Sounds great to me. Now, you mentioned before the band background, and I find that more than half of the people who are working composers these days in TV and film were band people that had record deals and all that kind of thing. So what was your transition from being band guy to composer? Because totally different worlds.
Well, it's sort of the opposite for me because I started into the band world going from composer into band world. So I studied music in college, played in orchestra and studied composition and also studied like production and recording and all that. And then I moved to Nashville out of college to, I had to do an internship like at a record label, which was
everything except about the music.
Yeah, exactly. But and then I found myself in Nashville, working in bands, doing production, touring, doing all of that. And a lot of my background in the sort of classical world, if you want to classify it that way, kind of fell by the wayside because, it was a lot of pop music. It was a lot of, just like touring band stuff. So, at the end of my stint with Wild Cub, I played in a couple of other bands, and I sort of got back into a lot more producing, and I started getting jaded by the whole thing. And I was driving around in this '99 Honda Civic, and my aux, I had this really cheap stereo that I had installed in it, and the aux cable broke on it. So I couldn't listen. I could only listen to the radio in that, driving around in Nashville. Nashville's a big driving city like LA. So the only options available on the radio are like a lot of country station, a handful of pop stations that are, relatively decent, but it's not really my vibe that I want to listen to. And then the classical station in Nashville, which is one of the best classical stations in the country because they're so good at not just programming like your sort of standard repertoire of like Beethoven and Mozart and Bach and Brahms and et cetera. They will program a lot of new composers, a lot of 20th century, 21st century composers. And so that's sort of like, I was driving around just listening to pretty much that all the time. And that sort of sparked it sparked something for me, which is nice when you're in your, early 30s and you're looking for something to inspire you musically again, because feeling like you'd already done so much of it, touring around the world and all this. And so I started writing. I got back into writing for classical. I wrote a string quartet. I wrote a piece for larger orchestra, and then that sort of led into some film stuff. Moved out to LA, kind of the condensed version, but mine's a little different than I think a lot of band folks, because you're absolutely right. Like a lot of band folks, and I think that it has to do with like, the band world has a limited shelf life. Like once you get to a certain age, you either have to have made it huge and you can continue on as like a, legacy artist, or you just have to be someone who's down to be like a road dog and just break yourself, touring into your, 40s and 50s. And I think a lot of folks get wise and they're like, well, I don't want to do that, but I want to keep making music. And composing is, especially for film and TV, is one of those outlets.
Yeah, to be weirdly name-checky. I mean, two different members of Arcade Fire have film scores right now. Fred Corey from Cinderella is a film composer. Yeah. And
Owen Pallett from Arcade Fire, I mean, he'd been doing that for forever, though. To be fair, but everyone, I mean, I just saw
the third person, Colin Stetson, also in the Arcade Fire universe. So you have three Arcade Fire people competing for the same jobs, but the guy from Passion Pit, all these people, we love the music of. We don't necessarily realize they're also making the music for the film and TV shows. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Totally. So when was it exactly that you went, okay, done with the touring thing? I'm a composer. What year was it? It's probably
2015. It was at the end of whatever the record cycle for the Wild Cub album Youth was. So that was probably about 10 years ago, because I think we were just talking about how that album came out 10 years ago, which is sort of crazy to think about. But yeah, so it was probably about 10 years ago.
Yeah, you don't really put that band in your bio. That intrigues me.
Yeah, it's funny. There's not any specific reason. I think that it's just like I'm the type of person that, here's my dog, by the way. Hey, buddy. He's in the interview too. We're going to ask you questions later, pal.
Sure. I'll get the dog to sign consent form.
Yeah, he'll sign off. But it's not for any specific. I think I'm the type of person that I'm like, oh yeah, I did that, but now I do composing. So I'm not going to include stuff that isn't composing. But yeah, I don't know. That's a good point. Maybe I should put that in there.
Some people distance themselves. They have their I'm a rocker bio, then they have their I'm a philanthropist bio, or I'm a film producer. Like when you see Dave Grohl's producing a film, he doesn't go, and he played in the punk rock and hardcore bands Scream and this. It's just more that. So I didn't know if you had alternate bios.
that's a good point. I mean, I guess, I'm buddies with Ian from Passion Pit, and, I feel like he doesn't talk about Passion Pit as much either. I think it's just, I don't necessarily think it's distancing. I think it's just folks think of like, yeah, that was another lifetime. I did that then. I do this now. It's not that they don't mix. It's just like, yeah, I mean, you're not going to, I don't know. I mean, I guess people do hire certain folks because they're like, oh, you were in such and such band. So, which is maybe not a good reason to hire folks to do, but maybe it is. I don't know.
You're right. You could be pigeonholed if they think of you as a metal person, yet they
totally. I mean, if my background is I used to be in a metal band, I think that would definitely be in my bio. I'd definitely be putting that in there.
Well, did you have a metal background? Did you start off on 80s hard rock before you became a sophisticated person?
Oh God, I wish I was that cool. No, I was to the chagrin of my agent, I'm sure, who's probably like, maybe not something you mentioned, but I grew up, I played a lot of I played punk, which was cool, but like I did a lot of ska. I was like a big ska.
What's wrong with ska?
It's ska. It's third wave ska. What's the joke going around about like the New York Times thing about the fourth wave? And someone's like, I really hope this isn't about ska. But yeah, so that was sort of, I didn't really get into what I would consider to be like, good music. Not that ska's bad, but I didn't get into what I would consider to be good music until probably like college, like that's when I got into a lot of the more indie stuff, a lot of the more like, I don't know, people who were sort of non-genre.
In terms of the ska composer thing, I mean, Jeff Rosenstock is now composing shows, and he was a ska guy. So
fair enough. Yeah. I mean, I will say the one thing it did do is I've been writing charts and writing, stuff for horn players since I was, 13, 14 years old. So at the very least, it helped me learn the transposition of an alto saxophone.
But the last thing I'll ask you in the polite sense is, are we allowed to know which project is next from you, where to look for your scores next?
Yeah, I mean, the project I'm working on right now has been announced, so I can talk about it. But I'm currently working on a score for a film called Color Book, directed by David Fortune, written and directed by David Fortune. He just won the AT&T Untold Stories grant at Tribeca last year, and so I'm currently working on that. I don't know anything about release or timeline or any of that, but yeah, it's a beautiful script. It's what I've seen of footage so far is absolutely gorgeous. And it's I'm really, really excited about it. I think we're going to make a really special film. He's a very trusting director, which is I feel very fortunate to be able to work with somebody like him who's like, yeah, man, what do you think? That's what's on the horizon as of now.
Paltrocast.
Well, how is your day going aside from talking to fake news media today?
Is this fake news media?
Yeah, I mean, you have to give that disclaimer. You set the bar really low, and
I see.
intelligent questions, so you overwhelm with intellect.
I'm familiar with that strategy. I start every meeting setting the bar low, and can only go up from there. No, it's going good. Doing some fixes on another project right now, which is always a great way to start Friday morning. But all good. How about you?
Nonstop but good, because I'm talking to David Fleming, and you're one of those people where most people you encounter have heard your music, but they don't necessarily know, hey, that's David Fleming. How do you like that paradigm, that, for lack of a better term, that concept that they've heard your music, but you could walk by anonymously?
I think there's something about film composing in general that probably, musicians who were not necessarily performers gravitate to. I remember, I don't know if this answers your question, but I remember distinctly when I was a kid listening to a Meatloaf record, and it said on the front cover, music by Jim Steinman.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I was aware that there was a different thing, like, what, Meatloaf didn't write these songs? Like there was a different thing between the person who sang the songs and the person who wrote them. So, look, of course, I'm enjoying getting my own projects and getting my career up and going, but yeah. I definitely can identify with like reading liner notes and things like that. And,
totally. Yeah.
And to be honest, there's something that is ideal, at least for me and my personality, about being a part of a film rather than it being me out in front. I really have no interest in that. I've never been a performer. So, it's that, like, it's wanting attention, but not wanting to be in the spotlight, if that makes sense.
Yeah. You want to have an entertainment job, but not have to be the entertainer.
I don't even know if it's entertainment. I always wanted like a storytelling type job,
Okay. Creative job without dealing with the problems of the tortured artist.
I'm fine with those too. It's the entertainer. It's the entertainer bit that I'm less comfortable with. And I would assume a lot of film composers are. Although now you see guys like Hans and Danny Elfman going out on stage and.
Yeah, very good point to rudely interrupt you here. My brother went to school with James Dooley, who's another Hans protege, and a lot of the people you're seeing are, you work under the genius, you learn the craft, and then you can go out on your own. But I'm going to say half of the composers at the moment are people who used to have record deals. Ian from Passion Pit. You're seeing half of the Arcade Fire is scoring Hollywood right now. So you mentioned before that you weren't so much of a performer, but did you grow up playing in garage bands?
Oh yeah. I definitely, and performing was something I got comfortable with, but I always knew that it wasn't like my calling. I really liked writing music for those bands, so that was definitely part of it. And yeah, it's interesting to see more people come from the record side of things.